Welcome to the Tim Booker channel. Wisdom is worth sharing. Wishing you an enjoyable listening experience. Today, the book I'm going to discuss with you is Bullied. Subtitle: What Every Parent, Teacher, and Kid Needs to Know About Ending the Cycle of Fear. Bullying is a sustained attack on someone's physical and psychological well-being. It occurs in various aspects of our lives, including homes, schools, and workplaces. Among these, schools are often the most severe battlegrounds. According to UNESCO statistics, on average, 1 in 3 students has experienced bullying. How do we identify bullying, and how can we prevent and intervene in it? That's what this book aims to address. The author of this book is Carrie Goldman. She is not an expert in studying bullying, nor is her background related to it. However, she is a mother whose child has been bullied. Initially, Carrie had no knowledge of bullying, let alone how to address it. But when her own child became a victim of bullying, she had to delve into the matter to understand it better. It's in this context that she wrote this book. Although she lacks a professional background in the subject, Carrie conducted interviews with numerous bullies, victims, scholars, counselors, social workers, and lawyers, among others. In the book, she reviews and presents research findings on bullying from various fields and offers specific strategies to combat bullying from the perspective of someone who has experienced it. In the book's preface, Carrie writes, "This book is for all the children who have witnessed cruel bullying behavior but don't know how to extend a hand without sacrificing their own safety. It's also for all the children who have bullied others but want to change their behavior. And finally, this book is for all the victims of bullying, those who cry quietly at night because they don't know what tomorrow holds at school. In our lifetime, we have all played one of these 3 roles." Next, I will break down this book into 2 parts. In the first part, we'll delve into what bullying is all about, who is more susceptible to bullying, and who tends to be the bullies. Entering the first part, we start with Carrie's personal experience. It all began when her daughter, in the previous grade, told her she didn't want to go to school. Carrie asked why, and her daughter said someone in her class called her a little pig, which made her cry. Carrie called the teacher and talked to a few male students who had teased her daughter. The situation seemed to resolve. But not long after, her daughter refused to bring her water bottle to school because someone in her class made fun of it. These incidents continued to pile up, seemingly trivial, but their cumulative effect was affecting her daughter. Carrie began researching and trying to understand what was happening. She quickly realized that these incidents could be considered bullying, characterized by 3 key elements: negative comments directed at her daughter, repeated occurrences, and the imbalance of power between her daughter and the bullies. Though her daughter's experience with bullying seemed mild at that moment, it had the potential to develop into severe and prolonged torment. Carrie decided to understand bullying better and find ways to stop such behavior. One of the initial questions was why her daughter was bullied and who is more susceptible to bullying. The answer is quite simple: if you are different from the mainstream or possess qualities that don't conform to the norm, you are more likely to be targeted for bullying. In the book, Carrie particularly highlights 3 high-risk groups for school bullying. First, girls are more likely to be bullied than boys, especially those who are not slim or don't conform to traditional feminine traits. While we might believe that there aren't clear gender boundaries for children, mainstream gender concepts shape our thoughts from an early age. Toy stores provide an excellent example. They often have separate sections for boys and girls. Boys' toys emphasize energy, heroes, and strength, while girls' toys focus on beauty, cuteness, and color. These notions subtly enter our minds and become part of our gender beliefs and sometimes prejudices. Girls who play with what are considered boys' toys can face ridicule and criticism. Girls are not alone in this. The book also addresses the second high-risk group: boys who display feminine characteristics. In the book, Carrie recounts interviews with parents of children who were bullied because they were boys wearing pink clothing. The perception of colors associated with gender has changed throughout history, making it clear that such distinctions are cultural and can evolve. However, they are often treated as ingrained values, leading to judgment and even bullying. Besides gender biases, appearance abnormalities or physical disabilities can also make one vulnerable to bullying, forming the third high-risk group, as mentioned by the author, Carrie. She discusses her daughter Katie, who was diagnosed with amblyopia, a vision condition, before starting preschool. Katie's lower vision in her left eye led to her wearing corrective glasses. She often got asked, "What's wrong with your eyes?" Over time, she began to view her eyes as a flaw, hiding them unconsciously. This damaged her self-esteem. If such mild incidents could impact her, think of the experiences of those with more noticeable appearance differences or disabilities. Carey emphasizes that children with these conditions often seek solace among others who share similar issues. Carey received a letter from a 36-year-old man who had been bullied as a child. He reached out to comfort Katie and shared his own experiences. He said, "When I was your age, I had a piece of my buttocks missing. I was always teased by boys and girls because of it. I could only play with other kids who had physical disabilities. One had hearing aids, another wore thick bottle-bottom glasses, and another had a behavioral disorder. But, Katie, do you know something? They are my best friends for life. I now realize that normalcy can sometimes be dull, and being normal doesn't mean we should reject differences." After understanding who is more susceptible to bullying, there is another crucial question: who perpetrates bullying? In our imagination, bullies should be those typical bullies, but in reality, they may not look like bullies at all. Instead, they often maintain a good image in front of teachers and might even excel academically and in sports. They are often considered teachers' pets. Robert Ferris and Diane Felmley, sociologists at the University of California, Davis, conducted a study in which they asked over 4,000 American high school students to name their 5 closest friends, 5 students they had bullied, and 5 students who had bullied them. From this, they created a chart that showed the popularity and aggressiveness levels of each individual. They found that the children most likely to engage in bullying were those in the second tier of popularity. They often engage in malicious gossip, physical conflicts, and various aggressive behaviors to climb the social ladder and compete with the top-tier popular students. In contrast, those at the very top and the very bottom of the popularity hierarchy were less aggressive. The next question is where bullying takes place. Clearly, schools are hotbeds for bullying. The enclosed environment of a school increases the likelihood of verbal and physical conflicts. According to a university survey, the rate of bullying in schools is 32.4%, with 12.7% involving physical bullying and 17.4% involving verbal bullying. In this book, the author, Carey, also emphasizes the transition of bullying from offline to online, evolving from school bullying to cyberbullying. Carey mentions the experience of a young man named Mac, who has been a victim of various forms of bullying since the 7th grade. This included severe physical harm. When the school found out, they took some action but only warned the bullies not to repeat their actions. This proved to be ineffective. Instead, the bullies created a website called I Hate Mac, which attracted over 150 student registrations. They used it to post hurtful comments and messages, leading to Mac's complete breakdown. He never dared to tell his parents about it. He said, "I felt ashamed and embarrassed. How could I tell my parents about 150 kids hating me? I didn't even know how they would react." Cyberbullying is often more severe and complicated than traditional bullying. When you ask someone if they've experienced cyberbullying, they might find it hard to answer because, even today, there is no clear definition or measurement standards for cyberbullying. For instance, is it bullying when someone attacks you online, or when you leave a malicious comment or share one anonymously? The anonymous online environment makes it easy for people to leave hurtful comments or share them with a simple click, which complicates the definition of bullying. Due to these difficulties in measurement, cyberbullying is challenging to control. In Mac's case, the school didn't take effective action, perhaps because they considered bullying to be taking place outside the school grounds, or they simply didn't know how to handle it. Online content is challenging to remove completely, and it may persist indefinitely, causing deeper and longer-lasting harm than real-life bullying. Carey dedicates a chapter in the book to discuss the impacts of bullying. These impacts are not temporary but ongoing. Even after the bullying has ended, the damage does not stop. Psychological studies show that adults who experienced bullying during childhood often exhibit higher levels of anxiety because their childhood experiences altered their threat perception system. They become excessively anxious even in the face of minimal threats. Carey interviews Scott, a bullying victim who is now 32 years old. It has been 20 years since he was bullied, but he struggles to interact with aggressive people at work. He becomes helpless when someone speaks forcefully or rudely, as if he's frozen in place, just like when he faced bullying as a child. He also finds it challenging to trust others and accept positive feedback. When someone praises him, his initial response is to ignore it and self-deprecate. He says, "I know it doesn't make sense, but I can't control it. It's how my brain reacts." Both the victims and the bullies have consequences to bear. Carey quotes Laura Hanisch, an expert in bullying, who says that children who engage in aggressive behavior during childhood are more likely to escalate their aggressive actions during early adolescence, leading to more extreme forms of violent harassment and criminal behavior. This harms society, and the bullies themselves may develop antisocial personality disorders and depression. Therefore, if we can educate today's children on how to get along with others and not engage in bullying, we have the potential to reduce bullying in various areas, not just in schools, both now and in the future. So, how should we proceed? In the next section, we'll discuss how to prevent and intervene in bullying incidents. Bullying involves multiple stakeholders, and let's start by looking at what families can do. You might have many parents wondering how to protect their children. However, Carey emphasizes in her book that the initial step for parents is not protection but rather distinguishing the type of harm their child is facing. It's crucial to differentiate between normal rough play and actual bullying. Let's consider two scenarios. Scenario 1, on a Sunday afternoon, a group of children is playing at the park. One child notices a swing and rushes over to it. Another child also sees the swing, quickly gets on it, and this upsets the first child, who starts crying. The second child doesn't care and calls the first child a crybaby. Eventually, the two start fighting. Scenario 2, again, it's a Sunday afternoon, and children are at the park. One child, who has a speech impediment and tends to play alone, is on the swing. Suddenly, another child arrives, pushes the first child off the swing, and claims it's their turn. Afterward, the child who pushed the first one off gathers a group of children to play a game but deliberately excludes the child with the speech impediment, who has no option but to sit on the ground and cry. In these two scenarios, which one involves bullying? Undoubtedly, it's the second one. As mentioned earlier, bullying is characterized by repetition, unwanted attacks, and an imbalance of power. The reason for highlighting this distinction is that many parents tend to be overly protective. Even when their children aren't feeling uncomfortable or unsafe, parents might feel that way for them. Such excessive protection can interfere with a child's normal social development, preventing them from learning how to handle themselves in social situations. Carey advises parents not to pamper their children every time they get hurt unless the child themselves feels like a victim. She references a book called Best Friends, Worst Enemies, which explains that all children will face teasing and name-calling at some point, and that's the bad news. The good news is that most children are resilient and can find ways to deal with the insults at school, eventually discovering a group of friends who accept them. This resilience allows them to rebuild their self-esteem, cognitive abilities, and social skills to cope with the challenges of the social world. However, when parents are sure that their child is a victim of bullying, they should take immediate action. For younger children, who have simpler lives and depend more on their parents, it's easier to observe whether they are being bullied. On the other hand, older children, such as teenagers, might hide their bullying experiences due to shame, embarrassment, or a lack of trust in their parents. In these cases, parents need to respect their children's privacy while staying vigilant for signs of distress. Signs that a child might be experiencing bullying include sudden changes in eating and sleeping habits, loss of interest in usual activities, withdrawal from friends and family, and persistent feelings of pessimism, helplessness, or depression. If parents notice these signs, they should talk to their child. However, children may still choose to remain silent, in which case parents should consider seeking help from other trusted adults, relatives, or professional counseling services. As mentioned earlier, the harm caused by bullying is not short-lived, it persists. Therefore, Carey recommends that parents help their children find new social outlets to build a fresh identity. Encouraging children to participate in extracurricular activities, try various courses outside of school, and make new friends during the process can help them regain their self-esteem and discover their place. This strategy not only helps bullied children but can also aid those who engage in bullying. Providing new social outlets for both parties is crucial. Additionally, finding appropriate outlets for the emotional release of aggression, such as sports or calming and focusing training, is essential. However, parents can only do so much, and schools play a vital role. Carrie's husband, Andrew, is a math teacher at a public high school, and he was asked if he would intervene if students in his class faced bullying. Andrew responded that he would sometimes step in. His primary role is to manage the class because effective teaching is essential, and it is in the best interest of the students. Carrie explains in her book that behind bullying is a lesson about morality and society, and it should hold the same weight as academic subjects. A good teacher shouldn't only excel at teaching subjects but should also be attentive to students' daily lives, offering guidance, intervention, and protection whenever needed. Research shows that bullying is more likely to happen in classes where the teacher lacks communication and engagement with students. Therefore, if every teacher pays close attention, communicates with students, and builds trust with them, it is much more effective in preventing bullying than just posting anti-bullying slogans in the school or holding anti-bullying lectures. In the process of intervention, schools often resort to punishments and sanctions against bullies, such as public discipline, suspension, or expulsion. However, as Carrie mentions in her book, these external punishments can't change a person's way of thinking, and without changing their thinking, their behavior is unlikely to change. Transforming a person's thinking is a challenging process that requires a deep understanding of their inner beliefs about themselves and others. To address this, Carrie introduces the concept of restorative justice. In simple terms, restorative justice is about values and relationships rather than punishment and rules. It tends to involve the parties directly instead of relying on third-party decisions. The focus is on repairing relationships and restoring dignity. It's not meant to punish but to reshape a person, rebuilding self-esteem for the victim and helping the bully understand their actions and avoid further deterioration. Restorative justice has been shown to be effective in preventing youth crime and reducing recidivism rates. This concept is now being applied to schools to restore bullying relationships. As a case study, consider two third-grade boys, A and B. A had difficulty with social interactions and had been bullied by B's older brother. To take revenge, A repeatedly bullied B. After a serious bullying incident, the police were involved, and A was arrested. The police and school proposed trying restorative justice, and both parties accepted. A coordinator invited A and A's mother, B, B's father, and two unrelated mediators. A and B initially introduced themselves without discussing the bullying, sharing their interests and hobbies. After a couple of rounds of such communication, they began to discuss the bullying incident. The victim, B, spoke first, and everyone could ask questions. Then, the bully, A, shared his perspective, and questions were allowed from others as well. Throughout this process, the coordinator emphasized the importance of keeping the lines of communication open and not rushing to refute. Finally, all participants collaborated to develop a plan to make amends. This plan's goal wasn't punishment but rather personal transformation, giving the victim a sense of dignity and safety while helping the bully recognize his actions and prevent further harm. Restorative justice may not work for everyone. Before initiating the process, it's crucial to assess whether the victim is ready to face the bully and whether the bully is willing to acknowledge their actions. If the bully avoids the process or refuses to admit wrongdoing, restorative justice might not be suitable. In any case, it's vital to ensure that involving the bully does not lead to secondary harm to the victim. Carrie also highlights the school's role in mobilizing bystanders, transforming them from passive observers into witnesses and allies. In most bullying incidents, there are three parties involved: the bully, the victim, and the bystander. The number of bystanders is often linked to the duration of bullying. More bystanders tend to prolong the bullying. However, research has shown that when bystanders intervene, bullying stops within about 10 seconds. So, how can bystanders be guided and encouraged? It's not about encouraging them to directly intervene when they see bullying, as this might lead to ineffective intervention and potentially make them targets. Rather, the key is teaching them to differentiate between tattling and reporting. Tattling is reporting an incident to get someone in trouble, whereas reporting is about ensuring someone is safe. By continually emphasizing this distinction, children can release the psychological burden of tattletale fears and become active witnesses and defenders of the bullied. Sure, here is the translation of the provided text. Alright, after discussing the actions that parents and schools can take respectively, let's now specifically address the issue of cyberbullying. When dealing with the more complex problem of cyberbullying, what can we do? Carrie mentions the term digital citizenship in her book. Just as in real life, we need to learn to be responsible and respectful members of society. In the digital world, we also need to become good digital citizens. This means recognizing ourselves as stakeholders in the digital realm, adhering to relevant guidelines, caring about its development, and ensuring it moves in a positive direction. In practical terms, both parents and schools have an obligation to teach children how to use the internet responsibly and help them build fundamental digital literacy. This includes reminding children that their online behavior should be as responsible as their actions in the real world. Information posted online may not be easily retracted. They should strengthen privacy settings on social media platforms and avoid impersonating or imitating others online. In essence, the discussion of internet technology should become a part of daily communication with children, guiding them toward appropriate usage. When we discover that a child is being subjected to cyberbullying, we should take decisive action, just as we would with traditional bullying. Carrie emphasizes 3 key actions in her book. 1. Collect evidence, save any offensive comments, images, or videos as proof and present them to the school or law enforcement. 2. Help children block the bullies or remove their contact information. 3. Report the bullying incident to the relevant websites, requesting the suspension of the bully's account and removal of the related information. As mentioned earlier, cyberbullying has more profound and lasting consequences due to the nature of online communication, which is wide-reaching and long-lasting. Therefore, as Carrie states in her book, if the internet can cause harm, it can also be a source of support. If cyberbullying uses electronic media to belittle, embarrass, torment, and harass others, online support does the opposite. It employs electronic media to motivate, support, and uplift others, instilling confidence in them. Carrie herself experienced an outpouring of online support when her daughter faced bullying. After turning her daughter's story into an article and posting it online, it quickly ignited a strong response from thousands of netizens who wrote articles in support. Her daughter was not only encouraged during this process, but many other children like her also found inspiration. Carrie received numerous letters, one of which was from a mother who shared the story of her daughter, Maya. Maya was sensitive and enjoyed toys that were typically associated with boys, making her the target of ridicule and causing her to become very discouraged and self-conscious. However, things have changed now. After seeing so many people's stories and receiving support from so many people, Maya decided to wear a boy-style outfit to school. She was once again ridiculed, but this time she boldly told those boys that she didn't care. She stood up for herself and was proud of being herself. Alright, that concludes our discussion of this book today. Let's recap. In the first part, we discussed how to identify bullying. Bullying is characterized by its persistence, the unwillingness to accept attacks, and a significant power imbalance. High-risk groups for bullying include children who don't conform to traditional gender roles or appearance standards. In schools, students with a second-tier level of popularity are more likely to engage in bullying. Moreover, we delved into how bullying, which originally occurred offline, has now extended to the online realm, creating what we call cyberbullying. This has made it more challenging to measure and control bullying behavior, and the harm inflicted by bullying has become even more severe and far-reaching. In the second part, we discussed how to address bullying. As parents, we need to learn to differentiate between bullying and normal social conflicts. When we confirm that a child is being bullied, we must take decisive action. Parents should be attentive to signs of harm in children and help them find new social pathways to repair themselves in new relationships. For schools, they must place anti-bullying education on an equal footing with academic education. Schools need to not only protect the victims and stop the bullies but also mobilize bystanders who can act as witnesses and allies to deter the bullies. Lastly, when dealing with cyberbullying, we must enhance our own digital literacy and learn to be responsible digital citizens. Collecting evidence and reporting cyberbullying are essential steps, and we must recognize that the internet can cause both harm and support. We can come together online to let everyone who is facing difficulties know that they are not alone. Congratulations on completing another book, and thank you for your support and attention. Please subscribe to the Tim Booker channel, like, and share with your family and friends. Wisdom is worth spreading, helping to create a brighter future. Thank you and goodbye.